Good morning, everyone, and welcome to what is probably the first presentation at Dreamforce, certainly by Vonage. So today we're going to be talking about Vonage Premier for Service Cloud Voice and AI in the contact center. I'm joined by some of my colleagues who are well known and represented in the industry. We'll speak to them and let them do introductions in a moment. But ultimately what we're here to do is talk about Service Cloud Voice, how AI will work alongside that and benefit your contact center within there. So we're going to explore that. So if I may, thank you very much. If I may start by introducing Robert, or introducing yourself, please.
Excellent, thank you. So good morning, everybody. My name's Robert Fredrickson. I'm one of our regional vice presidents here at Salesforce. I get to work with all of our trailblazers out in the field. Been with Salesforce for about 9 years. And prior to my time here, I actually got to work at Verizon, first building contact centers and then operating a contact center myself. Before my role here in the field, I actually worked as the North American Industry Advisor for Comms and Media here as well. So super excited for today's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Wenqing Dai. I'm a Senior Product Manager on Service Cloud Voice. I have been with the Salesforce 10 years, almost 10 years, just beat Robert by a little bit here. Through my own 10-year journeys here, I have been working on a lot of key features here, if you know, as an engineer capacity. So Lightning App Builder to help you customize your Lightning page. That's my team was building there. And also bring your Lightning experience onto mobile. Recently, I joined the venture to embark Service Cloud Voice right around the pandemic starts, actually. Very special day to remember. Definitely, this is one of the most exciting and product I have been working on. Right now, I'm leading the voice intelligence and the AI efforts for Service Cloud Voice. And super excited to be here, join all these wonderful gentlemen to kick off your Dreamforce.
Brilliant, thank you, Wenqing. And Patrick.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Martin. I'm General Manager of Service Solutions at Coveo. I've been at Coveo for 5 years now, in the GM role for about 7-8 months. Prior to that, I was leading our support organization, and this has basically been my life for the last 25 years, being in support organizations and going from agent all the way to leading global support teams at different companies like Taleo, Oracle, and whatnot. Very excited to be here this morning and kicking off the Dreamforce conference with my fellow panelists here.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And I am Jonathan Kershaw. I'm a Director of Product Management at Vonage. I look after a number of products, but the two key areas are Service Cloud Voice and our AI offering within the contact center. So what we'll do is we'll just have a backward and forth between the four of us, then we'll throw it out for questions towards the end if you have any. So let's kick off. So what does the market look like for AI, machine learning, automation, and how does this trend change service or contact centers? So for example, where are people placing their bets? So Robert, if I don't mind asking you to set the scene sort of from a business, then we'll move to Wenqing, technical, and then over to Patrick.
Sure, that sounds good. It's an exciting time, actually. When we think about it, how long ago was it that everybody first heard of ChatGPT? And now what? I think the word on the street is 2 billion people have used some form of generative AI. Google is saying that what? By 2026, there's going to be 7 petabytes of data being generated per second. That's a lot. So when you look across the market, we're all dealing with a lot of change, and there's this hype cycle that's been going on. First, it was automation and how it's going to change the contact center. Then, oh, this thing, machine learning, that's going to change the contact center. Predictive insights, they'll tell us what to think and how to do that. That's going to change how we interact with customers. And now we're here at this generative AI transformation period. I think the temperature in the market when I get to work with clients is there's excitement and there's a little bit of disorientation because we've seen a lot of cycles before. I think everyone's trying to figure out what does this mean for my business. And through all of the noise, I think the one thing at the end of the day is this is all for experiences, for employees, for customers, and for every user in the operation. I was even thinking about seeing some of the great demonstrations that were out here, what it means for other people in the business that support the sellers.
I like the way you say for employees. rather than against or anything. There's a lot in that sentence.
Yeah, everything's in service of the customer, and the business should serve the employees that serve the customer.
Like any technology always has and always will.
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Wenqing, from a product perspective.
So first, maybe start with my personal experience on ChatGPT here. So I heard these words while I'm on vacation with my family after 3 years separation due to the pandemic. Suddenly, my friends start to text me throughout the day, like on ChatGPT. I use this for this, I try out for this one. I even remember one of my friends used ChatGPT for her financial use cases to generate beautiful charts. So I think the point here is that we can find actually generative AI technology like a serve user use cases. You can find the use cases to apply generative AI to help you here. When, as a product manager, we love to build products, but what we build if we cannot serve like use cases, cannot drive business values, it means nothing. So that's what when we do first, when we see generative AI, ChatGPT, like start to born here, and what we can do as a product. I think where we can help, like the first thing definitely is the use cases. What a customer is care about, like about this one. And we go sit with the customers. We even go into agent shadowing sessions to identify some common use cases can greatly leverage generative AI, such as a summarization. We know it's a common use cases for our voice call contact center here. Actually, we just launched a pilot 4 days ago, last week there as well. So that's number one thing. In addition to that, where we play our best here is actually in addition to just solve those use cases, there's a lot of things go behind the scenes here. So we want to think about like what's your concern? We want to go ahead of your time. We know with the generative AI, people are concerning about like the trust. How can I deliver my customer data securely to those technologies and also surface this to my customer with a human in the loop? So actually, when we think about this one, we try to build like a platform to solve this problem. So it can apply to Service Cloud Voice as well as all our product lines. So framework is really important for us. That's where we play best on. So I think as Salesforce, definitely we acknowledge this is not an easy journey. As a product manager here, I can say like we will bake into your values to help you scale your service, bring down your cost, and drive like a boost agent efficiencies, always bake into our daily life. That's when we start to build product.
Fantastic. And I love your phrases and use of the phrase use case, because that's what it's about. It's not, I think we see a lot of ChatGPT using a lot of consumer to consumer type thing, which will come on a little bit later on how do we get started. But I'm just using that as a segue to Patrick, because in terms of deploying solutions, you want to know what those use cases are. So how do we see these trends in your world as well?
Yeah, you definitely want to see what these use cases are. But I think if we really want to think about how Gen AI and AI in general can be very transformative around the customer experience, I think it's important for us to take a few steps back. When I started in support back like 1999, and dating myself here, support was rather easy. There was one channel, and it was the phone. You didn't have to ask yourself how to contact your support.
And it was on and off, wasn't it? It was the answer.
Yeah, exactly. So it was rather simple. But with the rise of the internet, now came online product documentation, and then with knowledge bases came support portals and case submission forms, and with live chat came chatbots. And all these use cases are like different use cases, but what happened is everybody thinks about them as separate use cases, which it causes a siloed, disjointed customer experience. So if I'm a customer, I'm using this product or this service, I go to their product documentation, I search, I get this experience, this content. Then I go to the support portal, I get this information, this content. I might try the chatbot. I'm going to submit a case submission form. I'm jumping through these self-service hoops to finally either call or submit a case, and then I have to start my story over. I think where Gen AI and AI in general can really transform this customer experience is connecting the journey, making it a unified journey, which means regardless of the digital property or channel that I'm taking or that I'm using to interact with the information or with the agent, Now it becomes, how do I personalize that experience along the way? You know, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of information out there, so it's like customers expect you to know them. They expect you to deliver those personalized experiences. So if I start on the product documentation site, whatever I do there, if I call the call center, the person that's going to answer the phone needs to know what I searched for, needs to know what I've done, so that they can pick up the conversation, where it left off. I'll just take an example. What's more frustrating than these disjointed customer experiences? When I call my internet supplier, they ask me for the phone number that's tied to the account, and I punch it in. And when I talk to an agent, the first question they ask me is, what's the phone number on the account? I gave you that information already. In theory, you should know it because I'm calling from that phone. So it's all about thinking, removing the silos, really, and thinking about, okay, how do we think about this in a unified way, so that the customer doesn't feel like they're jumping through all these hoops to get the assistance they need.
Brilliant. And going the other way, I remember I too worked in 1999 as well, I have to admit. But people would go answer shopping, and you would try different people, because it was only just the phone call then, until people got the answer they wanted, which is what you're saying. Exactly. But what you're saying is, how do we think about it? Which leads nicely, it's almost as if we planned it, to the next question. So as people are interested in investigating generative AI, what are the common questions from customers on how to start using that? But I'm actually going to go to Wenqing first. Just as a product manager, there's some terminology and stuff that we need to ground, dare I say it, those terms before we sort of expand out.
It's funny you say ground. Actually, that's a really popular word in generative AI world here. So I think, similar to you ask questions here, I think when you say, hey Siri, and hey Google, I think you ask a lot of different type of questions here.
You just triggered a lot of stuff in the room there. Just by
I know, so that's why I say all the things like there. So there is no good question, bad question. There's no stupid question. I think product side, we encourage you to ask questions. It really depends on the life cycle or the phase your business is in. I think there are maybe 3 types of questions like we hear commonly. The first is when they suddenly start to hear about this, is where do I get started? Am I ready to get into this journey? I think that's when you come down to like an AI, when you figure out your AI project, you come down to is a data project. How do you get all your data into one place? Like Rob said, how do you get all your data, CRM data, all in one place so you can apply AI on top efficiently? Second one is when those people start already set their foot, say, we will apply this to our business use cases. We identify use cases. Where do I start? Like, do I have the technology actually I can use around this one? How do I shop for technologies? I think that's where you're gonna define your use cases we just talk about here. Like those low-hanging fruit, like what you can start. Like start with a baby step and then prove success, move to the next phase. Last one actually is the grounding. Like when you apply this one, try it out in a pilot or in other format here, you will find, okay, my result is totally different from what I thought here. Like it seems not very relevant. If you think about it, I just use a conversation we have and just generate like summarization or generate a reply recommendation. It's just based on the context we have in this conversation. But it will become more powerful. Actually, you connect your data, your CRM data, your customer data, past purchase history, service history. You're gonna provide a better response to your customer. So I think grounding definitely is another thing, like a common ask by our customers here.
Fantastic. So we're assuming all the data, the knowledge, not knowledge, the information in Salesforce is structured. But as a putting you on the spot, could people in here go away today, talk to people in the Dreamforce campground and maybe have a play and then take it back, next week actually have a go?
100%. Like I think you are right in the center, like the best place to get all the resources here. Talk to not only all these booths, like Vonage have a lot of wonderful booths here. We have the huge campground, and also you have a lot of customers. They have the similar questions. If you bump to someone, they might share the same things. So you can learn from each other. Definitely.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Rob, I'm going to come to you from layering the story. What does the CX, those start questions look like, the customer experience, what should they be thinking? And then I'll come to yourself. Sorry, absolutely the wrong way around there, Patrick, sorry. Then I'll come to you, Robert, from a business point of view. So, people will be going, can I start? Yes, you can. How should I be thinking from a customer experience? How do you justify it from a business? So,
Yeah, going back to this whole, where do I start? It's like a lot of the customers that we talk to at Coveo come to us and say, hey, what you guys is doing is great. All we want to do is put a large language model on top of all our content, and that will solve all of our problems. Unfortunately, that's not really the way it's going to work. You really have to think things through. And as Wenqing was saying, is like start small. You really have to think about your content strategy. You can have the right technology, but if you don't have the right content to fuel the answers, you're going to, the end result will not be what you expect. And that is the key piece here, is you really have to think about that content strategy, that data model, and making sure that what is being generated, because you're generating something new here. So it's as I mentioned, it's not as simple as just putting a model on top of all your content, because you don't want to generate something on this 15-year-old PowerPoint if it pops up as being somewhat relevant. So you really have to think about that content strategy, the data model, to really get the results that you're expecting from your customer experience or your employee experience, because that content is new, that content is generated, and you might not have full control over what's being generated, so you want to make sure that what you're feeding to the model is relevant and will be generating that relevant content for the consumer.
Content strategy, data model, it's hurting my head a little.
Sorry, I know it's early, but
yeah, a bit of jet lag. All I'm thinking is, we're looking to start. We all know what that means, and I'm sure plenty do. But I suppose taking it back
yeah, definitely. When we think let's bring it back to the contact center. So I'm assuming most of you are familiar with knowledge-centered services or knowledge management strategies. When you're managing cases, in theory, you should be creating knowledge articles at the end, or maintaining or updating knowledge articles, and making sure that these are always up to date. So when you're thinking about this whole Gen AI piece, the way to keep your content up to date and relevant to the user is really to have this knowledge management strategy. And I invite everybody, to even go beyond thinking about the call center. Go to your customer success organizations, go to your professional services organizations, go to your product documentation, and really expand the reach of all the content that you have available, because that will add even more value to what's being generated, both to the agent or the customer in a self-service use case. So definitely that is important. And then when we're talking about the data model, is going back to what we said earlier about knowing your customer. If you don't have the right data model that captures that customer information, and you're using this information to personalize the answer. So if I'm a customer A that have product Z, well, if that's not right, the answer that's going to be generated is not going to be right. It's not going to be for the right customer. It's not going to be for the right product. So all these things come to mind when we're thinking about the customer experience for Gen AI.
So thanks very much. So, Robert, we've obviously seen the technologies there. How do you approach it? But equally, you've got to go to the business and say, I want to invest. Can you share,
Yeah, at the end of the day, from a business perspective, all these ideas are great. You can go out and build the ideal data environment where everything's connected and you can view your customer perfectly, but this comes down to the actual outcomes that you're going to deliver for the organization. And so this begs the question, if anyone's got a project they want to go bring upstream to go get it funded, you got to get a group together, and to your point, go anywhere in the business where you might drive an impact and say, okay, what do we have on the table here from a toolkit perspective to drive an outcome with this new generative AI? More than that, how do I use my other investments? Because it's more than just the fancy new shiny bauble that's generative AI. It's all the predictive insights, the machine learning you've had before, the previous ways you've worked to build views of your customer. How can we stitch those together to use the assets we have to deliver a new outcome? And when you form those stories correctly, you can get sponsorship from your executive leadership teams to start taking on projects, which brings you to the second point on this. iteration. So as you build your strategy for building data models, you want to build it so that you can actually iterate quickly. Plug in new data sources, unplug not useful data sources, and then apply them as you need to new outcomes. Generative AI can be used in a wide number of ways. And so you have to really be ready to go test, fail quickly to get to the answers that are going to make you the big dollars and the big outcomes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Which takes me on to my next question, which is basically trying to give it some context of a contact center, because that's where we've come from. How do we consider Service Cloud Voice and AI technologies? How do they work together to improve that customer experience and improve the customer value? So really, it's an extension of what we've just said. And I think you started by basically saying you've already got the building blocks, bring them together.
Yep.
But this is a bit more specific in the context.
Yeah, so when you bring it into the contact center, you've got, first of all, if you've got an ecosystem of partners, like we represent an ecosystem here on stage today, bringing all that data in as the customer first touches the business. How do you bring that in and know who they are and start working with that profile of the customer as quickly as possible? And in the contact center, it comes down to, with all of this information that's out there, the limiting factor is the person that's interacting with the customer. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's that. So when you're designing that experience for whoever's interacting with a customer, you got to think about what's the right insights you need to get in front of them so that they can focus on the best thing that humans can do, which is interact.
Which is basically continuing your point earlier of it's for the human, not to replace the human.
Correct, absolutely.
Fantastic. So Patrick, just taking it to the CX side, but earlier on you were talking about, the siloed knowledge, the siloed information. You're obviously alluding to, chatbots, web self-service, those sorts of things, but just trying to bring it into the context of just Service Cloud Voice in the contact center. Where should be people?
Yeah, it's just piggybacking on what Rob just said, right? So yes, there's the customer information that you need to know about who you're talking to, what products they have, look at their previous journey, but you also need to understand, or your agents need to have visibility on what they've done prior to contacting you, right? So that you don't have to start the story over. And this goes beyond that. That's the beginning of the journey. But if you think about your support model, if you're in a tiered model and you think that things need to go from tier 1 to tier 2 to potentially tier 3, how does the information carry over? Because we've all gone through frustrating situations where you talk to tier 1 and then finally they transfer you to tier 2 and tier 2 says, okay, what's going on? And you have to start that story over and over and over again. And that's a frustrating customer experience. In today's world, you don't have to search on Netflix. You don't have to search on Spotify. They just give you the information you need. That's what customers are expecting as well. So when you're thinking about that for your own, call centers, is how do we get all the relevant information, all the insights that the person will need to really tailor the experience to the customer so that the customer feels like you know everything you need to know about them, that you're really picking up the conversation where it left off, and now you can have a structured conversation, and then at the same time, try to make the agent more efficient by giving them the right information without even them having to search for it, because they don't have to put the customer on hold for 5 minutes because they have to search through 12 different content repositories to find the answer they're looking for. So it's leveraging all of this data and all these insights to make sure that the agent can really focus on interacting and helping resolve the customer problem that they have to deal with.
Fantastic. I like the way you say, give the agent the information, which actually is a good segue to you, Wenqing, with your background of Service Cloud Voice, obviously conversational intelligence that you were talking about it, and people will go out onto the campground floor. What are they actually looking for, from Service Cloud Voice, AI, to achieve those things, give the knowledge, which I may then come back to you, Robert, just to sort of say, what does, sorry, Patrick got it the other way around again, how does that then take advantage of your technology to bring that information up, Wenqing?
Yeah, I think first, let me do a quick show of hands. How many of you have heard of Service Cloud Voice? Okay, now I feel super proud, like here, half of the room here. So As first of all, a little bit context about Service Cloud Voice. I think there are a few goals we try to achieve when we start the journey here. One is a unified Omni experience. We want to make sure this is a part of your contact center solution. It's not just about voice. When you zoom out, is how do you apply AI on top of all your channels? What's your channel experience here? Second one is back to like Rob Patrick talked about here, is the customer experience. Eventually land down, translate to is your agent experience. How do you boost your agent experience actually with the AI technology? The other one, actually, I think is most important is our ecosystem, our partner telephony system like Vonage here, and we have a partner like Coveo here to help us here. And then we come down to really is the AI side, how AI marry with the Service Cloud Voice. When we think about AI, we talk about in order for your business to actually see value, how to boost the agent productivity, or drive business value to save cost, or drive efficiency, it's very important you have all the data built onto one single place, and you can apply AI efficiently on top of here. So Service Cloud Voice actually is built on top of like a #1 AI CRM platform here. So that's where you can leverage the power of like data here. Through all our Service Cloud Voice journey, I think like Jonathan know here, AI is not a new term for us. Actually, we start to bake the AI conversation intelligence since day one. That's when we have real-time transcriptions since day one here. That's a very important data source to power those generative AI like results here. So I think there are 3 things that we really help here. Customers' experience definitely being one of that. Is we say we try to help customer experience. End of the day, we want to give all the information to your agent at their fingertip. Give all the tools that they need to start their day to assist your customers here. So that's include the whole life cycle of your call journeys. Start from routing to the real time on the call. How can I get all the information to automatically generate next best actions, suggestions for your agent to fulfill your customer task here. To end of the call, how do you quickly summarize the call so your agent actually can use those time, give back to the time when they really help assist your customer, provide a more personalized experience here. And also end of the call, like those things, like insights there as well. I think the other one is actually we help you to scale. If you think about it, zoom out a little bit, Service Cloud Voice is just part of your contact center solutions here. And the Service Cloud Voice offer our product line all the way from low-touch self-service all the way to high-touch field service. We'll build like on top of the same data platform, the CRM data. Actually, you can apply those things to all different channels here. And use AI to speed up like those process, like among the calls here. And also the other one is self-service, use generative AI actually help you provide more relevant information, accurate results. Make it even better, what you learn from your voice channel, Service Cloud Voice, you can use AI to feedback to your journey, start from beginning. Maybe you can deflect the call to use the self-service now. And I think last but not least is actually we have a lot of data. We want to help your operation efficiency. How do we increase that? Because we can use AI to generate the insights, use those data, like instant conversation mining and our sentiment journey, our like service intelligence, all built around data to help you make sense of those data to help you evolve there.
What I actually like about what you said there was bringing the insights together to serve the agents. When you think about the use cases, it's not as linear as you might initially think. Because I'll give you an example. Agent gets a perfect view. Customer calls in, they see everything they need to see, they get the insight. But with partnerships like Vonage and Salesforce working together, what you'll get is those real-time transcriptions of that dialogue. Now we get to play a different game. I've been a frontline manager in a call center before. The most infuriating thing is watching one of your agents struggle to build their skill sets in the call center. But now if you can get real-time transcriptions, sentiment analysis of that call served up to a leader, they can actually bring their experience to bear to help coach that agent to actually build their skill set. And you think, okay, well, that's interesting, but layer that on top of the fact that we're a remote call center world now. COVID shifted the way we ran call centers from a centralized to a distributed model. Having these tool sets to get the right insights to people leaders so they can help raise the skill of all your agents in aggregate really has fundamental impacts on the business.
And I think that's a huge point that you've made, because we're now getting those insights and changes happening immediately rather than just after the call, let's find a random call to coach on. They've made the mistakes 10 times. It's there.
And the effectiveness of coaching in the moment has been proven versus way like a week later at a one-on-one.
Yeah, perfect. No, great example. So if we consider the challenges of AI, and what are some of the hurdles that you foresee in the adoption of AI in the contact center? Actually, and I'll go back down.
I get to start. Well, I think there's a couple big pieces. Lessons can be taken from the last go-around of AI and machine learning with what we did with predictive insights. I think the data management is a big piece. I think, Wenqing, you could probably speak to that better. But everybody was excited, like, oh my gosh, I can get these analytics that can tell me what to do next. And then they go to build those insights, and they're missing key components of data. There was fractures in how their data strategy was put together that prevented them from getting all the precursor elements to actually get a cool insight they could use for an agent. So as we look at how we adopt this today, I think there's a couple things. LLMs are different. This stuff is different. It feels different. We can all log on and get a productive conversation from these LLMs. So there's layer one, low-hanging fruit. You're at Dreamforce, you're going to see what we did on our portfolio where we GPT'd everything, right? You go run, grab low-hanging use cases where you can. And then once that's done, you start thinking about what your data approach is for bringing your data together to start getting those more elegant kind of 201 curriculum outcomes. That might combine an LLM with some machine learning, with some automation. And so good foundation, iterating quickly, and listening to all of your users is where I think where people are really looking right now.
Which is fantastic to hear, because actually you're just saying, go play, but do what you've been doing previously with all those other technologies, listen to your users, get your data lined up, but now we're just using a new, super exciting technology.
If you're aiming at a good use case and you put a group of people together as like a committee, a governance board, any sort of steerco, go after the high value problems and the answers will precipitate out.
Perfect, perfect. Wenqing.
Definitely agree, like what Rob says there. To me, I think this is when they try to get past like the hurdle of this one, there are two shifts I see is coming like on the way. One is the technology shifts. Just like you said right now, data is super important. Actually, we know our customer is not there yet. They're still going through digital transformation for their contact center from the old on-premises to like the digitalize all the things. Now we try to slap new things on top of that, say you need to have an AI applied to everywhere. You just suddenly start to overwhelm yourself. But this is a good problem actually to have. Like this is one engineer work with me, ask for my product requirement. They will always ask, what's your long-term goal? Tell me the full list of your requirement. Don't tell me just the two. Like the reason for that one is because they built this long-term strategy. Later, I can add requirements one by one on top. So it doesn't feel like you just take something, take it away, and start to build everything ground up. So same thing when we apply generative AI technology, right? So data is a foundation. So that's the first thing all our customers, I believe, need to think about. How do we get a data into one place so you can apply AI efficiently? The other one is like the trust we mentioned. How do I apply those trust layers on top? Make data secure, make the response have a human in the loop like there. I think the third one in technology side is we are like a shopping in a shoe store now. Like which pair looks great. Sometimes it's not about which pair looks great, it's which one fits you well. Like on this one. So we'll pick the technology, try it out. Like Rob, like Patrick said, it might work, it might not work. You might change your use cases, or you might switch different technology. Or you just choose something, can plug and play, right? I start with this one. If it doesn't work, like Rob said, I can swap with a different one, like in a later, give you flexibility. The other one I think is important actually is mind shifting. Like you will hear from generative AI technology here, all your employee, your agents start to worry about, like lose their jobs. You will feel natural resistance on this one. But actually take some education. What we try to do is just take your repetitive task. We want to upskill you. You can now focus on more complex use cases. You can focus on those empathy cases to provide your customer cares. So this is not about yourself, it's your agent's career journey as well, because they're gonna get more skills along the way. And the trust actually also apply here, like business. How do you actually build the trust? I can apply this one to widely in my organization. So that's what you have to define, like those success metrics, your ROI. And if it fails, it doesn't work, let's adjust. I think last but not least, I think this is different from when we build technology probably 20 years or 10 years back. You build there, and this thing can last for 5 years, 10 years. So when you apply AI, it's really about iterations. You start with small, but you have to keep in mind is keep iterating, like we grow together, learn together along this journey here.
Fantastic. And Patrick, your last view on this, and then we'll sort of summarize and wrap up. I've been told this is a great conversation, but people have other places to go, so Patrick, on.
Really? They're not spending their day with us? Is that what you're telling me?
Let's see how it
Came
is.
as a surprise to me too.
But no, really, I just want to build on what Wenqing was saying. You know, from my perspective, there's two main things. There's adoption, which you will get agent resistance. So the best way to mitigate that resistance is involve them in the process. You know, really involve them in the decision making. Show them exactly what the benefits are for them, and that you're actually putting this in place to make them more efficient, to empower them to deliver the best customer experiences that they can, and also to be a change agent as well. Because definitely when we think about the impacts of generative AI, if we are taking all this simple stuff away, and a lot of this stuff is being handled by self-service because the repetitive the questions are being handled by generative AI, the whole support model needs to change. It needs to be rethought, because usually tier 1 handles those easy repetitive tasks. So if you think that the tiered model will sustain, you have to rethink your support structure. If the issues that are coming in are more complex, you need to raise that skill set. So probably the tier 2, tier 3s are going to come back to being customer facing. We need to think about these collaborative support models, intelligent swarming. These are all transformations that we see coming in the industry, because the impact of these new tools, these new technologies, will be significant enough to have these transformations. We've been hearing it for years. I mean, when self-service came, everybody said, that's the end of agents. Everything will be handled by self-service. Reality is, that didn't happen. But in this case, the technology is so powerful that we expect that there will be transformations in the support models, and start planning for that today, because there will be upskilling that you need to do. The work that they're doing today will converge over to being more knowledge workers. We've been seeing it for a very long time, but now it's going to happen. You can't just rely on GenAI to generate these knowledge articles and publish them without having someone who's reviewing them, making sure they're accurate. Because if that's what you do and you lack accuracy, what happens in the end? That content will be used to generate more content, which will lack accuracy. So you need to keep that human in the loop, and that's really how the world of support and the role of support will transform in the upcoming years.
Fantastic. So we could have gone on, as you said, for hours more on this. We've barely scratched the surface. But just to sort of summarize, and then if you've got any more points, I'll, by all means add, and then I'll ask for questions. But basically what we're hearing is you can start today. Go out to the campground. It's there. It's now. It's not, just air. It's there. You can actually do it and then go back. To take full advantage of it, you do need the key building blocks like your data in there. But if you're doing data cleansing, preparing, that's going to only benefit your business anyway. You then sort of, to take full advantage of the transcription that's powering all these, which powers the searches, etc. Service Cloud Voice is a key thing for the transcription. Obviously, there's coaching within there. But still, ultimately, think about your use cases, but simple use cases like, can we reduce AHT? Can we reduce after-call work? Those sorts of things with the summarizations. Just classic business cases of what should we do, start small, iterate, move fast, which I know what we've done, but actually AI sounds daunting, sounds massive, but as a business, you've been doing it for years. Anything else you'd like to add, quick, 20 seconds, and then open it to
We do get to
questions.
talk about this all day because we're at Dreamforce. So go enjoy and explore.
Yeah, definitely. One piece of advice, wear comfortable shoes. You're going to walk a lot, easy hit your 10,000 steps today.
Nothing artificial about that.
No,
Yeah,
just explore.
That's probably the advice that I've heard the most in the last 24 hours is wear comfortable shoes. Not really, like we're repeating ourselves, but start small, think about your data model. If I had X, I could do Y with it. And always focus on the customer experience because that is really what will drive everything. And that's how you're going to empower your agents to deliver those great experiences.
That's fantastic. I would like to thank the three of you, Robert, Wenqing, and Patrick. So thank you very much for this knowledge and experience. Much, much appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Any questions, or you can just come up and grab any one of us afterwards. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.